Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel. We are on a little bit of a field trip this morning. We're loading the truck up with some straps, the winch. We're hooking onto the trailer. We're not going far. We're after some parts for the 1000 SP. We're heading across town to my friend Pete's shop. You've seen some of his place here on the channel over the years. He's got a pretty incredible yard filled with water and air-cooled Volkswagens, and he's been nice enough to help out in a massive way on the 1000 SP project in time for SEMA. So we're heading over there the first thing this morning. We do need my trailer, so we're going to hook onto the open trailer. All right, we're all hooked up. I think it's a little overkill to have a 24-foot car trailer, but we've got the winch on. We've got a jack, we've got straps, blocking, hand truck, some dollies, battery for the winch. What do you think for the front? You think maybe, I mean, I can help hold the front.
I'm thinking we just grab right in here.
I'll strap it right there.
Yep, tail weight.
Yeah, no, I'm not going far. What'd you think? Oh, come on, we'll go to the shop. Go easy. All right, guys, we're back to the shop, and we did not pick up a car. We picked up like part of a car. What we're looking at here is, I believe, a 60, but it's a 60 to 1966 Volkswagen Beetle rear end. This right here is part of the actual pan tunnel, and it's been cut right off. What we have left is the torsion tube that the torsion bars are in, and the whole rear end, essentially. You've got your spring plates, shock towers and shocks, axles, most importantly the transmission, the backing plates, drums, wheels, and even tires. Well, the reason why we have this here now is because the auto union, and I've talked about this, the 1960 auto union, the 1000 SP, is over a 1959 Beetle pan, right? And that 59 Beetle pan has a split case in it. It's a transmission that is a magnesium cased two-piece transmission. It might be more than two pieces, but essentially where this ridge is right here is bolted together on the split case. It's a split case. And ever since I got the 59 pan and chassis, all my air-cooled friends have said, you're gonna hate that transmission. Even just the gearing, it's not synchroed. It's just not gonna be a fun transmission to drive that car with. And I figured down the road, maybe I'd swap a transmission out. But for now, I have so much fabrication work to do to finish that car and mechanical work. Just so much stuff. Plumbing work, electrical work, chassis work still, sheet metal work, just so much stuff. I figured I'd tackle a transmission swap later on down the road. Well, once I finally did a gear oil change in it, I did my backing plates and axle seals and all of that, I noticed that the seal up front here at the nose cone, there's like a bushing and a seal in there, had failed. And since we did the Eva Resto gearbox raise, which is this cradle in the back here, this here, these two big nuts, or these two bolts essentially, basically the Eva Resto cradle raise, which I did an episode on installing, lifts your whole gearbox up about an inch, which means the motor comes up about an inch, which gives you more clearance to go low. Once that got installed, the transmission leans forward a little bit, which means most of the gear oil will head that way. And the transmission has just been leaking all of that oil out of that seal there. And once I realized I had to pull that transmission to essentially do the seal, the bushing, and the front transmission mount, which is underneath this, I might as well kill two birds with one stone and not put the crash box or split case back in. We might as well just go for the 60 to 66 aluminum case transmission and possibly do a bus nose cone if we're gonna need it. I don't know if we will. So what you're looking at right here is ultimately what we're gonna put in the 1000 SP. This transmission. And ultimately these axles as well. Now luckily I have all brand new backing plates, brakes, axle seals, all that. So before I talk about more stuff I've got to do to this transmission, before we get it underneath the 1000 SP, let's get this off the trailer and inside because it is already blisteringly hot. Now it doesn't want to roll. Has this thing gone into gear somehow again? Come on, let's go. Wowee! Why are you not rolling? Yeah. All right, well, we got the rear end inside. Shop foreman has found himself a comfortable spot. A little bit of sunbathing. I'm gonna work around him and just get a lot of this all vacuumed up. Basically at Pete's shop, he's got a bunch of air-cooled Volkswagens out back behind his shop, kind of littering his property, which is amazing. It's almost like an automotive Volkswagen museum. But he's got a stack of these things, because back in the day, people wanted to build trikes out of these, you know, motorcycle trikes. And they basically needed the torsion tube back. So you had the frame rails, and you could basically run your whole transaxle and the whole rear end, essentially. Put the motor on it, and you had 2/3 of a trike. So basically over the years, to the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, any car that, you know, was too rusty to see the road again or whatever, he would cut the pan right off at the back here, bend the body, or part the body out, and he had a stack of these things lying around. And luckily, we needed a 60 to 66. Now, I didn't want a 67 because that's got a wider track width. And because of the rear end of that car, we don't have any room to spare. We are literally up against those fender wells. So it should have the track width that we need, the same as what's under the 1000 SP now. So really grateful for Pete. I really appreciate him donating this to the project. This was not on the checklist of things to get done before SEMA. This is all basically last second, having to do this. This was not on the checklist. So before we break it all down, I'm gonna vacuum all this stuff up. We'll get the wheels off, we'll get it down off the dollies, we'll get it jacked up. All right, we're basically ripping everything off of this, but still gonna go around with some fluid film and just spray down everything to kind of help motivate it so we don't have to cut stuff off. We can actually just zap them out. But we're gonna have to take the spring plates off since the axles are going with the transmission. And since this is under pressure, I'd rather relieve it here first and then unhook the spring plates from the axle. That way we're not trying to slide the axles out of the spring plates and have those still under pressure. That has not had oil in it for some time. Last night, I put, I don't know, half of 16 ounces, it's about 32 ounces, put about 16 ounces of mystery oil in the case, and I noticed that there's a bit of fluid on the floor this morning, and I don't know where it came from. So now that I've got this thing basically disconnected, basically everything's ready to pull away, I want to find out if and where this is leaking from. And that way we kind of know what else we need to address other than cleaning the axle tubes up, doing new boots, new mounts, you know, basically anything else that we might need before we take the body off the 1000 SP, because it's got to come off anyway to do a bunch of other work, but that's going to make pulling the Type 3 motor and that split case with the entire rear end and axles and all of that all at once. Let's get to it. Oh boy, of course. There we go. Where are you leaking from? Oh, I found it. I think we're leaking from the nose cone. As you can see here, our rear transmission mounts are par for the course for a rear end that's been sitting outside for decades. Same with the front mount. The rubber came right out of it. I was really quite worried about what this might have come out of, like what this was. My buddy Kyle Golding actually pointed out in some photos I sent him of this, the single bolt body mount on the torsion tube. Most Beetles have two right here. So we have an upper body mount, a lower body mount, but there's only one bolt here. So if you know what this might have been, leave it in the comments below because I am not sure, neither was Kyle. We have a number here, B5228-350. And that seems like that would be late 62 to early 63 manufacturer, but not a Beetle, B5. We weren't sure if this was Carmen Ghia. The transmission starts with a 113, which Kyle and a few other friends of mine said that that's definitely Beetle. I am not sure if this is going to bolt in or align correctly with my 59 pan that's in the auto union. Really unsure of how that's going to fit because these front mounts are different. This mount here is basically a part of the torsion tube in the 59. It doesn't stand off like this. So I'm unsure of height and depth as far as how that'll mount. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. So I have moved forward with ordering parts for this. We've ordered the boots, which are universal, but I've also ordered a nose cone seal since that mystery oil is leaking out in the seam here. So we've got a nose cone seal coming. We have a front transmission mount coming, the boots, and we have our rubber bushing here that's gonna basically sit in where the shifter rod comes out. This guy right here. So we got a new one of those coming. And everything else on the axles that are already in the 59 pan will transfer over to this as far as backing plate, seals, and I've got everything brand new for the brakes, wheel cylinder adjusters, shoes, all of that. Here we have our axle boots. These are the aftermarket ones that are split, so you don't have to actually remove the axle in order to slide a boot on, as the OEM ones are. There's a crack in the flange right there. You kind of see it right there. And wouldn't you know it, that's on the bottom. Now, that's where gear oil will be coming out of that flange, and this boot will be holding it in. I'm unsure if it's gonna leak once I have this clamped on and clamped tight. So once we get this turned up and we actually start to work on this, I might actually clean that up and tack weld it shut and then smooth it back down again, just to ensure that we don't leak once we get this thing in the car. All right, well, I've pulled the nose cone and taken some time to clean up the mating surfaces and just clean them up in general. Didn't bore you with all of that. What I'm gonna do now is I've got my paper gasket and I'm gonna use some Permatex gasket maker to just ensure sealing. This part of the hockey stick here, as they call it, that part actually sits in the grooves of your shifter rods right here. And if I do remember correctly, I think this is 3rd and 4th gear, 1st and 2nd gear, and then reverse. Now, when I took this nose cone off, the reverse rod was up, which means these channels in here were not lined up. I thought it was in neutral, and when I pulled it off, this was up. So basically, I just tapped that back down. So hopefully we're in neutral now. I can't really turn the axles just sitting here. So hopefully the transmission's good. We still have yet to know if this transmission's even good. It was dry, there was no fluid in it, but the drain plug didn't have any metal on it. So we're gonna run with this thing is hopefully good. All right, we've got our nuts on. Gonna just snug these down. And I did verify to make sure we're in neutral. These are an 11 foot-pounds torque setting. I have an inch-pound ratchet here with me now, which converts to 132 inch-pounds. And will go around in an alternating pattern. All right, well, I pulled the welder out and decided to tackle the split that was in the passenger side flange of our axle here. And now we are ready to basically put the boot on and clamp it, and that will not leak now. All right, so I've cleaned up the axle ports, like these portal areas, got in there with some carb cleaner and just sprayed all the debris out, got it all cleaned up and prepped for the boots. These split boots allow you to basically install with the axles on. As I was mentioning before, the OEM ones don't split like this, so you have to actually remove your axles and slide the boot on. right, guys, we have the body pulled. Actually, for the first time since I moved back to New Hampshire. We haven't had the body off this thing in well over a year, actually. It has been more than a year, now that I'm thinking about it. It's not super difficult. It's just annoying to get everything lined back up to the factory beetle mounts when we drop it back down. You guys may remember building these mounts and the overall frame inside the body, which we still need to finish weld some stuff, still need a little bit more work to do. And even this time, while we have this up in the air, not on the pan, we're gonna finish weld some things as well. I'm gonna cut some of the footwell out of the body so we can prep to make our new firewalls, which will all be in different upcoming episodes if I even have a chance to film it. All right, we have the motor out and we've got the whole rear end out. I left the Eva Resto subframe in just because we could. I'm running a 1-inch riser here, so that helps get my motor up off the ground, obviously, since we're gonna be driving this super low. This is built by Eva Resto, and this entire bolt-in bag kit is built by Max and Jesse over in the UK at Eva Resto as well. The split case is out, and as you can see, now that it's out, it's 2 pieces, which is why they call it a split case. This is actually bolted together, the whole case. And this entire case is made out of magnesium, which is pretty crazy. Being a 6-volt transmission, I had to mill out this part of the bell housing for our 200mm flywheel. All right, I've rolled both rear ends out. We're getting a good look at the transmission that's going in the car, and I'm unsure of clutch forks. So that clutch fork looks different than this one, mostly because this arm goes all the way across in the bell housing and meets like, I don't know, like a casting mark here. Whereas here, it stops and free floats. Like I said, you Volkswagen guys probably already know all this stuff. Yes, I do believe it looks like it will. So let's get these things in. These actually hold the throw-out bearing into the clutch fork. Oh, that's it. Huh. Yeah. I don't think the mount is going to work. Well, that's not going to work. I now know why everyone that I know with a late 50s Beetle with an early 60s to late 60s transmission have always talked about doing a bus nose cone. This is where that is needed. And what I read last night while doing some research, and many of you already knew this going into this, at the beginning of this episode, if you're an air-cooled guy, was that up through 1960, and I know that 1960 is kind of like a wild card year for moving stuff around on these Beetles. Up through 1960, the transmissions basically mounted right here. And right here is where your hockey stick passes through to meet your shift rod. Now I've cut this up and open because of what we've had to do in the 1000 SP. But after 61, they moved the transmission mount down like quite a ways, by a few inches. And essentially that was, from what I read, to alleviate negative camber in the swing arm, to just alleviate suspension geometry, to better handle the rear end of the car, essentially. But the bus stayed the old school mounting location through 1967. So the bus nose cones, which are bolt on, bolt off of these transmissions, up through 67, still had the close mounting alignment. So basically the casting of the bus nose cone does not drop the mount down as far as this does. So unfortunately, this is not a direct fit. I know many of you guys watching this episode from the very beginning knew it wouldn't be. Basically a novice with a lot of the Beetle stuff. I'm learning every step of the way on these cars. The BMW 700 pan under it is a 69 pan. So that's a ball joint front instead of the link pin, kingpin. And it's an IRS rear, which means it's got inner and outer CV joints on the axles, not a swing arm like this. It's been a few days since the last clip, and I've been working on a ton of stuff. What's happened is we have acquired a bus nose cone, all thanks to my friend Kyle Golding and a buddy of his down in South Carolina who have rallied together and gotten a bus nose cone and a bus hockey stick, by the way. You need a bus hockey stick for the 62 to 63 transmission that we were putting in the pan. So that kept me from having to search the internet for someone who had one, eBay, etc. That should be here tomorrow as I'm filming this. So while we wait for that bus nose cone to show up, I've been doing a ton since the last clip. I'm working on door cards now, designing door cards. So you'll see that in a future episode too. Every moment that passes, I need to be getting something done on this car in order to have it ready enough in time for SEMA. We're under 2 months away now, and I know that sounds like a lot of time, but it's not when I'm self-employed and I need to make sure I've got paid jobs coming in too to keep the lights on. So I'm trying to balance that line of I love my hobby, and I love that my hobby is becoming a little bit of my career, but also I hate my job and being stressed. So I've been working on a ton while we're waiting on this bus nose cone to show up. The last couple of days, I've already started a bunch of other projects and gotten a whole bunch of small stuff done on the car. All right, day, I don't even know anymore. I've lost track. We're still filming 3 different episodes right now. Building a turd for SEMA is definitely not what it's cracked up to be. Not when you only have 2 months notice. The bus nose cone has arrived, and huge thanks to my friend Kyle Golding and his friend Brandon for sending me one. They expedited shipping one, and I thought we were off to the races. Now all I have to do is pull that nose cone back off, which we just regasketed. Pull this thing back off, and already you can see how much lower this mount hangs from our hockey stick than the bus nose cone. Was getting ready to pull this until I realized our hockey stick in our nose cone bushings is not tight. Not tight at all. And this is ultimately why we're doing this at all. Because in the first place, this split case, which I know I don't ultimately want to drive down the road with when the car's done, but would have just dealt with for now, so we could just keep moving on with the rest of the build, was the bushing here is really loose. You're not supposed to have that kind of play. And it's just a brass bushing in there, and fluid is just dumping out of it. So that was too loose. And in order to replace that bushing, as I already mentioned earlier, we got to pull the transmission out to do it. And since we're pulling the transmission out, we're not putting this one back in, we're putting the other one in. And wouldn't you know it, the bushing in this bus nose cone, which I didn't even think about, is pretty loose. Now the other thing I was unaware of when Kyle was sending me this bus nose cone is that we had to have a bus hockey stick. This hockey stick is different than the Beetle hockey stick. And we've confirmed this. So when this bus nose cone and hockey stick are together, this is where the shift rod meets, obviously, and inside is where we get our gears selected. Now here's where the problem is. You're not supposed to have that kind of play. So we will have fluid dumping out of this, just like we have with the split case. I'm going to order 2 bushings. It's Sunday of Labor Day weekend, which means tomorrow's a holiday, nothing moves tomorrow. I'm sure by this point, this episode is a lot of talking. I started filming this episode like 2 weeks ago. I've been working on so much other stuff. We have different numbers stamped on them, but they look the exact same. If a bus hockey stick is different than a Beetle hockey stick, either this Beetle transmission already had a bus hockey stick in it, or the bus nose cone I just got had a Beetle hockey stick in it. Now, what I've seen online, since there are two bushings in here, you can't get to the first one with a punch because they basically meet inside the actual nose cone part. And what I've seen online is guys take a 5/8 tap, because apparently 5/8 is not larger than the bore or the ID of the nose cone, but is larger than the ID of the bushing. So what guys do is they thread this into the bushing enough to where it really bites, and then flip it upside down and tap on your tap, and it will pull the bushing out. And then you do the same in reverse on the other side. So it taps in. Let's go in a little bit more. That might be enough. Let's tap her out now. Let me get this thing out of here. Don't worry, this is already a roached out extension that I've turned into a punch. The bushing is coming. All right, well, let's pull the other one out. And there's our inner bushing. What I did when I ordered these, I got the inner and outer, they're the same basically, but this gives us the OEM replacement. But they apparently make an aftermarket bushing right here where you still use one of these, and one of these still goes on the inside of the nose cone. Well, this replacement is the outer bushing, and this goes on the outside of the nose cone where your hockey stick comes out in couples to your shift rod. And in the larger part, after this shoulder, is an actual rubber seal with an expansion spring in it and everything, which would fit right down in there, which, when put over the hockey stick, gives you a second line of defense for no leaks. So although I like doing things the way the manufacturer designed them to, I really don't want this to leak. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to use one of these for our inner bushing, and we are indeed going to use this one as our outer. Let's get this transmission put together. Let's get it back in the car because I don't have any time. We have to get this rear end in so we can test fit the E50s on the 1000 SP, which we still have yet to do. And we need to test fit everything in order to figure out where we need to build our wheel tubs and all of our sheet metal and all of that. I'm cooked. I'm so cooked. We still need to clearance the bell housing for the 200 mil flywheel too, which I don't even know if I'll do on camera at this point because this episode's been filmed over the course of like 2 weeks. I honestly don't know if you're supposed to grease this or not, but I'm going to, just to help give it some motivation to pass through these bushings. There we go, we're through. Ooh, that's much better. Ooh, I like that. There we go. Boy, that doesn't have any play. All right, guys, we have our bus nose cone on our Beetle transmission. Here we go. Now, the good news is our transmission mount lines up to our studs, and our hockey stick is through the chassis. All right, well, we've got the transmission in, we've got the shift rod hooked up, rear transmission mounts, front transmission mount, all bolted in. We've got the entire Eva Resto rear bolt-in Beetle, swing arm Beetle, air suspension components all bolted in. If you're new to the channel, I did an install of this on this pan back when we first started the 1000 SP project. But this is Max's Eva Resto full bolt-in swing arm Beetle air suspension kit, and it is incredible. It uses all of your factory mounting points to basically build this bag and shock subframe with no cutting or welding, because you need an upper plate to push off of and lower to adjust the suspension. But go back and watch that episode. We talk about everything kind of more in detail. Got that all in. Now I'm really praying that this transmission is good. This thing sat outside for 20 years or more, and it's dry. There's no fluid in it. So hopefully we're in good shape. And what I'm going to finish doing in this episode is get our new backing plates on so we can test fit our BBS E50s once the body comes back down, so we know where to build all of our wheel tubs and sheet metal. So what I'm doing right now is I have the old backing plate off, and I have one of the new backing plates off of the old split case axles that we've already mounted. But I'm moving over all of our new seals. I have new axle seals on this cap. We have new O-rings. And what I'm doing right now is basically getting all the rear brakes assembled. So I bought all of this stuff a while ago, but we're finally assembling it all. Everything from wheel cylinders, all of our adjuster hardware. We've got all of our springs, hopefully all of our springs. And what I'm doing right now is carefully getting the old wheel cylinder hardware and brake cable hardware out, because I didn't have these 13 millimeter bolts. And luckily I was able to get those two out. We have our first side all done. We don't have e-brake cables run yet. I just don't know what I'm gonna do yet inside that thing. I've talked about it before, but the 1000 SP has a really, really cool e-brake handle. Still ratchets, release lever still works, and it's underneath the dashboard, and I would love to make that work again. We don't need that working and functional in time for SEMA, so we're not worrying about it. Brakes are all assembled, drums are on, everything's ready to go. We just need to mill out this bell housing case. We're not gonna do that in this episode. We are out of time. I'm almost out of time, and we're all almost out of time to get this car to SEMA. I put a bunch of mystery oil in the case since this thing sat dry for so many years. And what I'm gonna do next is get the body put back down and start measuring where I need to build wheel tubs and test fit the BBS E50s for the very first time in the rear. I've test fit them up front. You guys haven't seen that yet. That'll be in a future episode when we're finally getting the car put back together. But the most crucial part is getting the E50s on the rear and figuring out where we need to build wheel tubs and our rear firewalls. So that's where I'll leave you guys off in this episode. Hopefully a large step forward. It's been a long process getting this thing in. And what I'll leave you guys off with is I can't currently get it in neutral. I'm not even gonna bother filming further in this episode as to what might be going on in that transmission, but hockey stick seems to be in neutral, transmission's locked up as of right now. So not to leave this on a cliffhanger, but that's where I'm at right now, is I might literally be taking that back out and resealing our split case up to go back in to just keep moving forward for SEMA. I don't know. I hope not. Stay tuned, I suppose. I'm going to dive right back into this. I really hope I'm not taking this all back apart and order more parts for the split case, because that needs to get sealed because the nose cone is leaking, which started this whole thing in the first place. Hope you're all well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep your fingers crossed for all of the work we have yet to do in just such a short amount of time. We will see you in the next episode.